Everyone.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to our Saturday morning Bhagavad Gita class for children. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामीति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Okay, so last time we were discussing chapter 3rd of Bhagavad Gita, text number 10, where Krishna explained about the principle of yajna. And so we discussed that yajna is not just a activity of merely a fire sacrifice. Yajna is a principle. In principle, yajna means to do some sacrifice. So work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. So all our activities we should perform thinking that Krishna has made the arrangement for everything. He is providing everything, he is maintaining everything. So we should show our gratitude. And the next verse, Krishna had said, in the beginning of creation, the Lord of creature sent forth generation of men and demigod along with sacrifice for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy in this by this yajna, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. So the purpose of yajna is to please the various in charges of the various necessities of our life, be it light, water, air, fire. So all these various necessities, somebody is the controller for those, and we show our gratitude. So by performance of yajna, mutually there will be prosperity. And the ultimate purpose of yajna is to achieve liberation, to become free from the bondage of this repeated birth and death. All right, so we will discuss going onward, text number 11 onwards now. So in text number 11, Lord Krishna says, the demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you. And thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. So here, we perform yajna. By the performance of yajna, the Devi Devatas, they become happy, and they will, in return, they will award the various necessities of life. So in that way, mutually, there will be cooperation, and then it will lead to prosperity, right? So sometimes we say that, oh, we have to perform some yajna, and by performance of yajna, there will be rain. By performance of yajna, there will be enough food. But now, scientifically, right? Scientifically, we think that rain happens because of clouds, and clouds are formed by the evaporation of water. So there is sun, and because of the heat of sun, the water evaporates and then it forms into clouds, And when there is condensation of the clouds, then it falls into rain. So where is the concept of Devi Devatas controlling these natural phenomena like rain, right? How scientifically these can be understood? Because science will say, oh, everything there is some automatic phenomena happening, right? Don't you learn that in school also? How the rain falls, how the food grows. So somebody may ask this question that these all happen. Nature is providing this. There is a automatic process in nature by which it is happening. So where is the question of Indra providing rain? Where is the question of Bhumi Devi, Mother Earth, providing this all the food grains? So how do we understand then? So first of all, the thing to understand is, see, science is just like a map. Science in itself cannot tell us what is good, what is bad, where to go, why to go. But science can only tell, or through the map, right? Map cannot tell you where to go and why to go. Map can only tell you how to go. So from place A to place B, it can show you the path, how to go there. But can the map tell you, no, you should not go there. That is not a good place. So science is simply a tool. Science can look at the material things. It can neither prove or disprove the existence of God. But we have to understand the existence of God, existence of all these Devi Devatas by logical understanding, by inference. So for example, now taking the question of rainfall. So we know there is an automatic process because of the sun heat, water evaporates, and then water, it turns into cloud, and then condensation happen. But who created that process, right? Who created that process in first place? Who has set up that place, that process? So that is where the process, that the question of the Devi Devatas come in picture. They have created this process by which everything is happening, even though it may seem us that it is happening automatically, but somebody has created that process. If something is happening automatically, it does not mean there is no controller behind that, right? You go in the car, so your parents may drive you when you go from your home to your school or from home to temple, and on the way you may come across many red lights, right? On the street there are some red lights, so red, yellow, green. When it is green light, you just cross through it. If it is red light, then you have to stop it there. So that all these lights are working automatically. With proper timing, they will turn into red. Then after a certain time, they will again turn into green. So even those red light signals, they are working automatically. But can you say, oh, this is an automatic process, nobody has created that signal system, the traffic signal? That will be a foolish thought. We know there is somebody behind this who has created that traffic signal process. They have studied properly how the traffic flows and at what time, what lights need to turn red and green. So it hasn't come out of nowhere. Somebody has systematically put together that traffic signal process. So automatic does not mean absence of a creator or absence of a controller. It's simply just that we don't see that person right now in front of our eyes. So same way, all these natural phenomena which we see in the nature, like the rainfall or the crops growing, we may think, oh, I put the seed in the ground, I give the water, and then the plant will grow. So where is the question of Bhumi Devi giving these plants, giving these food grains? I am putting the seed, I am giving the water, that's why plant is growing. So it's all natural process, automatically it is happening. But no, there is Somebody who is controlling that. For example, cloud, right? We were discussing the example of rain. So cloud is there, but now just look at the wonder of the cloud. It's so miraculous. Cloud is carrying tons of water. It's like a big spaceship which is carrying water. When a plane is flying in the sky, if something comes and hit the plane, what will happen to the plane? The plane will blast, right? It will break, it will get into pieces. But now the cloud is in the sky and it is carrying so much of water, but so many planes fly through the cloud. They just enter through the cloud and come out on the other side, and nothing happened to the cloud. See, such a miraculous plane. It is such a miraculous spaceship carrying the tons of water, and it is transporting the tons of water from one place to another place. We see in our country, in this material world, we have transportation trucks, we have transportation trains, malgadi, which carries good from one place to another place. So somebody has to drive those trains to make sure they go from one place and reach to the proper place where that all those stuff need to be delivered. Can the just that truck or the train go randomly from here to another place? Somebody has to maneuver that. Somebody has to control that. And same way, the rain clouds. So somebody is controlling those clouds where to make that rainfall. It doesn't happen artificially or arbitrarily that some place the rain will fall, another place the rain will not fall, but that is a proper system which has been created. Where to make that rain fall and where not to make that rain fall. So even though we may think some things are happening automatically, but there is a controller behind that. Even behind all these natural phenomena, there is a controller behind. So that's why Krishna here is saying, when we perform these sacrifices, the in charges of these natural things, the Devi Devatas, they will become pleased. And by the cooperation of men and these Devi Devatas, there will be prosperity all around. Now, the next verse is also very important. In this verse, what does Krishna say? Ishtan bhogan ihavo deva dasyante yagya bhavitah ter dattam apradhebhyo yo bhunkte stena eva sah. Yo bhunkte stena eva sah. So in charge of the various necessities of life, these Devi Devatas, being satisfied by the performance of Yajna, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to these demigods, these Devi Devatas, in return, is certainly a thief. So these Devi Devatas, they are who are in charge of these various necessities of life. They are providing us all these gifts for our maintenance. And in return, we need to show our gratitude. And if you don't show your gratitude, it's like a very ungrateful attitude, which is like a thief. So for example, your parents prepare everything for you. They make, your mother may cook for you, make all this nice food. Your father may go and buy some toys for you and all your other necessities. And in return, what is your responsibility? It's not that they are saying you that you have to pay us. It is just for your side simply saying thank you, right? When you say thank you to your mom, thank you, mom, you made such a nice food for me. Thank you, mom, for washing my clothes. Thank you, dad, for bringing me toys. Thank you, dad, for bringing me my books, my notepads, and all that. So it is just showing the gratitude. So same way, in this world, we are getting all these various necessities like the sunlight, like the rain, the food grains. So we are getting all these things from nature, and we should show our gratitude rather than being thankless, rather than trying to manipulate these resources and trying to destroy all these natural resources, waste those natural resources. We should be thankful. You know how much sunlight we use, and if you have to pay to the sun for all this sunlight, how much bill it could be? You use electricity at your home. Everybody use electricity at home. You turn on your fan or the light bulbs, right? And by using this little bit of electricity, maybe you don't know, but your parents are paying the bill. And every month there is some bill they are paying, maybe $50, $100, $200 for using that gas for heating in your home. In the winter season, there is so much cold, and you have these heaters, central heating, which keeps your home warm. So we are using all these resources, and you are paying bill to the company who is putting this connection to your home for the gas line, for the electric line. And with little bit of these uses, we are paying so much of bill, $100, $200, $300. And just look at the sunlight, how much sunlight we are using throughout the day. So if we have to pay the bill, if we have to calculate based on the electric charges, see, for a small area, for one state, let's say for Michigan, if we have to calculate the bill to the sun, it will become almost like $500 billion per day, just at a rate of 30-40 cents for kilowatt hour, which is very cheap rate. So for one small area, one small state of just Michigan, you have to pay maybe $500 billion per day. And if we have to pay that much bill, we will all go bankrupt. We will not have that much money to pay. So that's why whatever resources are being given in nature, we should acknowledge that. We should be thankful for that and utilize those resources in a proper way rather than wasting those resources, like the waters of the rivers, the wood from the trees from the in the forest. So they are all very useful. The trees are giving us so much of oxygen. They absorb the carbon dioxide and give us the oxygen. The rivers are giving us the fresh waters, the rivers and lakes. The earth is giving us all these food grains. Sun is giving the light, moon is giving the light, and there is so much air, so much oxygen available openly in the air. If you have to buy a tank of oxygen, you will be paying hundreds of dollars. And this is freely available in the nature. And without oxygen, we cannot sustain our life, right? We need oxygen to breathe. So we need all these natural resources, and the controllers in this material world, who are these Devi Devatas, they are the in charge. So we show our gratitude for providing all these necessities. Otherwise, if we don't show our gratitude, then Krishna says, who are we? Yo bhunkte sten evasa. If somebody just takes these resources and enjoys it, does not show their gratitude, they are just like a thief. So for example, you have this electricity coming to your home, this gas line coming to your home, right? Your gas stove is there on which your mother do the cooking, or the electric stove is there. So all these things are coming to your home, these connections. But if you don't pay the bill to those companies, to the government, what will be you? You will be a thief, that you are using the resources but not paying the bill. So that's like a thief. So same way, if you don't pay your taxes, so maybe you don't know about the taxes yet, you are too young. So your parents, whatever we earn, we have to pay some tax to the government. And if we don't pay our taxes to the government, then we are called a tax thief. So same way we have to pay our taxes, which is in the form of showing our gratitude to these various Devi Devatas. So for example, if the electric line is coming from the DTE to one city, right? That is a company which gives the electricity. And some gang of thieves, they don't want to approach the government to put an electric line or the gas line to their village or to their home, but they put an illegal connection. They just put a line from the government line and take it to their home, take it to their village without telling the government, without asking the government, without taking their permission. So then it is called being a thief, right? Chori karna. So if somebody enjoys without paying their due bills, it is called being a thief. That's what Krishna is saying. Bhunkte stena evasa. Stena means being a thief. So that person is just like a thief. Now, on the contrary, on the other side, the people who are grateful to the Lord, who acknowledge the presence of God, the presence of his various representatives, what do? So Krishna tells in the next verse, Yagyashishtan santo muchyante sarvakilbhishe bhunjate te tvav agham papam ye pachantyatma karanat. Yagyashishtan santo muchyante sarvakilbhishe. So the devotee of the Lord, they are released from all kind of sins, from all kind of sufferings, because they eat food which is offered first as a sacrifice, which is first offered to the Lord. Bhunjate te tva agham papam pachanti atma karanat. But if somebody is cooking the food for himself, enjoying it for himself, without first offering to the Lord, he is just eating sins. He's not eating food. It may appear to be eating food, but he is just simply eating sins. Te tvam agham papam. Okay, so this is very, very important verse. So what does Krishna tell here? That the devotees, the saintly people who acknowledge the presence of God, they first everything offer to Krishna. They first offer everything to God and then take the remnants of him as a prasad. So there is a difference in bhoga and prasad. Okay, what is the difference in bhoga and prasad? So Krishna here uses two different words. One is, let me see, bhunjate, and the second word is pachanti, not pachanti. So ashina, yagya shishta, ashina santo. So one word is ashino, one word is bhunjate. What is the difference in these two words? So from the English dictionary point of view, it may seem both word means to eat. Ashina or bhunjate. Both may mean eat, but there is a big difference in these two words. It's like a difference of day and night. So ashina means eating prasad. Eating prasad, which is left after yagya, after sacrifice, after offering to the Lord. So yagya shishta sino santo. So the devotees of the Lord, the saintly people, they eat food which is left over after performing sacrifice, after performing offering to the Lord. Whereas another word bhunjate, means to eat bhoga, to enjoy bhoga for sense enjoyment. Okay, so that is the difference. Ashino and bhunjate. So we should first offer everything to the Lord and then take the remnants of the Lord, which becomes as prasad. So for example, whatever you cook at your home, it may be dal rice, sabji chapati, whatever you prepare, even though it is a vegetarian food, but still eating that for our own pleasure without first offering to the Lord. Krishna says, it's not me telling, okay? It's not that I am telling this. Krishna is telling very clearly here in Bhagavad Gita that that person, if he is enjoying for himself without first offering as a sacrifice, is just eating sin, even though it's a vegetarian food. But first, if it is offered to the Lord, then it becomes as a prasad. Then there is no sin. He is freed from all sinful reaction. And the food is very important. The type of food we cook, the type of food we eat, that also affects our consciousness. There is food in the mode of goodness, there is food in the mode of passion, and there is food in the mode of ignorance. And in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speak about all these different categories of food. What is the food in goodness or passion or ignorance? The food in the mode of goodness is which is juicy, which is provided in nature. It increases the duration of life. It satisfies the tongue and the stomach. So that is the food in the mode of goodness. And what is that food category? It is the milk, butter, yogurt, grains, fruits, vegetables. So all these foods, they are in the mode of goodness. And the food in the mode of passion, which is too spicy, which is too pungent, which is cooked for longer duration of time or has been cooked kind of stale food. So those are the food in the mode of passion. And the food in the mode of good ignorance is which is uneatable, untouchable, which is the flesh of dead bodies, dead animals. That is the food in the mode of ignorance. Like some people eat meat, flesh, chicken, all those things. Those are the food in the mode of ignorance because somebody is eating dead bodies. Dead body is untouchable. It could be a dead body of a bird or an animal or a human being. It's untouchable. So eating the flesh of another life, that is kind of sinful, and that is completely in the mode of ignorance. So here Krishna says the food which is offered to the Lord as sacrifice and then accepted as prasad, those people, they are freed from all sinful reaction. Otherwise, if somebody is eating for their own pleasure, they are eating sin only. So ahar shuddho sattva shuddhi, sattva shuddho dhruva smriti, smriti labhay sarva granthi naam vipramoksha. So what does this mean? Ahar shuddho. If our food is purified, then what it does? Sattva shuddhi. Then it leads to the purification of our existence. If our food is pure, then our consciousness becomes pure. Our existence becomes pure. So ahar shuddho sattva shuddhi. Sattva shuddhi dhruva smriti. If our existence become purified, then our intelligence become purified. And when our intelligence become purified, smriti, dhruva smriti. So sattva shuddho dhruva smriti, smritir labhe sarva granthi nam. So when our intelligence become purified, then all our senses, they become purified and it leads to vipramoksha. Then it opens the path of liberation, open the path of moksha. So the food is a very, very important aspect. So in Hindi, there is a saying, Jaisa anna vaisa man. Whatever type of food we eat, it results into that level of consciousness. So that's why purifying of our food is very, very important. So offering the food to the Lord. So what is the effect of eating food. So with whatever consciousness we prepare the food and whatever type of food we eat, it affects our consciousness. That's why when people go eat at the restaurants, it results into lot of mode of passion and ignorance. You know why? Because the person who is eating the food, or sorry, who is cooking that food in the restaurant, his consciousness that enters into the food, if he is thinking of some bad activities, or his consciousness is completely filled with greed or anger, so that same consciousness enters into the food. And when we eat that food, through that food, that same consciousness enters into us and it affects our whole consciousness. So that's why sometimes we become so much overcome by anger, overcome by greed, because of the type of food we eat. You want to listen to a story? So once one sadhu, he was visiting a village, and in the village, many people will invite the sadhus, right? They will invite those sadhus, please come to our home so we can serve you some food. Because sometimes people will invite the sadhus to give them food, to serve them food. In that way, they think we will get some pious credit, some punya, we will earn some punya. So they want to bring the sadhus, and once one person, he invited those sadhus at his home. And as he was serving the sadhu is eating, and he is there with his disciple, his shishya also there, and they are eating that food. And after eating that food, as he is eating that food, this sadhu is getting some negative thoughts in his mind. He was thinking, oh, this plate or this spoon is so nice, it's like silver plate or silver spoon. Maybe I will just put this spoon in my bag, I will put this plate in my bag, and this person will not even notice, so I can just take it with me, this is so nice. So he got that kind of thoughts in his mind. So just imagine, he is a sadhu who is just renounced person, just going from one place to another place, has no possession, but now he's getting these thoughts that let me just steal this spoon or this plate. It's such a nice silver plate or spoon. So after eating, he just put that spoon and plate in his jhola, in his bag, and he went away. After finishing his food, that person just washed his hand and feet, and they asked his permission to leave, so that he just left and came outside the village. And this sadhu, now after some while, after a few hours, now he came back to his conscience. He was thinking, how come these thoughts came in my mind to steal? See, I am a sadhu, I'm a renounced person, how did these thoughts of stealing came in my mind? And he was wondering, and he told his disciple, you go and try to find out about that person at whose home we went to eat. So find out what does this person do, what is his background. So he went there, this disciple, he came back in the village and he started to inquire. He came to that person and asked, so actually, what is your occupation? So this person said, actually, I'm a thief, I steal at other people's house. So then the whole story became clear that this person, he is engaged in stealing from others' house. And while cooking food, while preparing food, first of all, his wealth is from stealing from others' house, and his consciousness was also absorbed about planning for stealing. Or tonight, I will go to this person's home and I will steal from this person or that person. And with that consciousness, when food is prepared, that consciousness entered into the food also. And when the sadhu ate that food, that same consciousness entered into him also. And he was filled with this thought of stealing. So he started thinking, oh, maybe I should steal this spoon and this plate. So what is the message, the moral from this story is the food affects our consciousness, whatever type of food or whoever. is preparing that food, their consciousness enters into that. So we should prepare food in a very sattva mood, in the mood of goodness, in the goodness consciousness, that food should be prepared. If the Matajis who is cooking food at home, they are in a very angry mood, they are very upset, they have fought with their children or they have fought with their husband, and then in that anger mood, in that grudge, they are cooking, what will happen? That anger will enter into the food, and that anger will affect everybody who is eating that food also. So preparing food for the pleasure of Krishna, we should always think, oh, I am preparing this food for the pleasure of Krishna, for the satisfaction of Krishna. And then I'm going to put it in front of Krishna as an offering. So when Krishna accepts that food, then that food becomes completely surcharged by Shuddha Sattva, pure goodness. And when we take that food as prasad, then it leads to our purification. Krishna is not hungry of our food. Krishna has everything, but we are offering food to Krishna for our purification, to show our gratitude to Krishna. Right? So next time you prepare food at home, make a nice plate, put all that food in a nice plate, which is specially reserved for Krishna, and then put it in front of Krishna, in front of Krishna's picture, in front of Krishna's deities. Bow down in front of Krishna and pray to Krishna, please accept this food. Whatever mistakes we have done in preparing this food, in offering this food in front of you, please forgive those mistakes. And out of your mercy, please accept this food. Okay? So food should be prepared in the mode of goodness and it should be offered to Krishna. And then when we accept, then it gives purification. So now we discussed that food should be offered to Krishna. What kind of food should we offer to Krishna? Can we offer anything and everything to Krishna? Somebody will say tomorrow, okay, I will offer this chicken to Krishna. Krishna says everything one should offer to me. So will I offer chicken in front of Krishna or some meat or these things? No, we cannot offer all those sort of things to Krishna. We can offer only the things which Krishna enjoys, which Krishna asks, which Krishna recommends. So if you want to please somebody, right? If your friend come to your home and you want to serve him some food, so he invited a guest at your home for dinner or for lunch, and what kind of food you prepare for him? So you try to find out what is his liking and disliking, what does he like the best, what are his favorite choices, and then you prepare those type of food to please him, to serve him. So same way, we cannot just serve anything or everything to Krishna. We serve only those things which are recommended by Krishna. Krishna enjoys only in food in the mode of goodness. The fruits, vegetables, grains, rice, lentils, milk, yogurt. So all the preparations with these things, that's what Krishna desires. That's what Krishna accepts. We cannot just give to him whatever we like, whatever we want. For example, somebody come to your home and he tells you, oh, I am very thirsty, I need a glass of water, right? And you tell him, why water? I can give you a glass of ghee. You just drink ghee. And you forcibly put a glass of ghee in his hands and make him drink that ghee. Will he be happy? Will he be pleased? He is thirsty and he just need water. So same way Krishna says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam jo me bhaktya prachati tadaham bhakti upaharitam ashnami pratatmana. I accept a leaf, a flower, a fruit, even some simple water. If somebody offers me these things with love and devotion, I accept those because those are offered with love and devotion. So Krishna is not hungry of our food that we will offer him chappan bhog. Krishna, here are 1,000 offerings in front of you. all these fancy things. Krishna is not hungry for our food. He is hungry for our love and devotion. Krishna is called Bhavagrahi Janardhana. See, in Mahabharata, there is a very beautiful story. When Krishna came to Hastinapur as a peace messenger of Pandavas, so he came to the assembly of Dhritarashtra, and Dhritarashtra wanted to please Krishna. And Duryodhana, he made so much of food at his palace, and he wanted to invite Krishna, that Krishna, you come for lunch, I will serve you so many offerings. You have never eaten those offerings, those food. I have so much opulences, I will feed you so many nice opulent prasadam, opulent food. And Krishna said, no, I cannot come to your home. I don't need all those offerings. See, I'm not hungry of your food. Somebody goes to somebody's house to eat only if there is a mutual reciprocation, if there is a priti, if they have a mutual love and respect for each other. Or somebody goes to somebody's house to eat if somebody is lacking for food. तो या तो अगर किसी के साथ हमारा प्रेम है तब जाते हैं, when we have lot of love and affection for each other, or if अगर हमारे पास किसी चीज का अभाव है, when we are lacking of something. So neither I am lacking of something, neither nor do we have some great love reciprocation with each other. On the contrary, you are enemy of my friends, my devotees, Pandavas. So I will not come to your home. Rather, Krishna chose to go to the home of Vidura. Vidura, he was a Shudra actually. He was the son of a maid servant. Even though he was a minister, he was a very learned person. So he was a minister of Dhritarashtra. But Vidura, he had a very simple house. He was living a very simple life. So Krishna came to the house of Vidura. And what did Vidura feed him? Some simple sag, some simple chapati sabji. So, and Krishna was very happy. He was enjoying that. Duryodhan ke 56 bhog tyage sag vidur ghar khayo. So he rejected these nice opulent offerings of Duryodhana, but he ate the simple food at the home of Vidura. So that is Krishna's reciprocation. Krishna only wants love and devotion. He doesn't need all these fancy things. But from our side, to show our love and respect to Krishna, we should show our gratitude and prepare everything as an offering to Krishna. Offer it to Krishna and then accept Krishna's prasad as his remanence. Okay, so this is a very important verse here. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment, they eat only sin. So very powerful verse actually, very powerful statement Krishna is saying. Okay, so hopefully everybody understood the message and we can hopefully cultivate this principle in our lives, in our day-to-day lives. So I will stop here. If anybody has any question, any children have any question? No questions? Everybody understood perfectly? Everybody is ready to make some nice preparations for Krishna and offer to Krishna? Okay, so looks like everybody has understood everything or they did not understand anything at all. Either everything went above the head. Okay, so thank you very much. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank
All
you.
the Vaishnava kids ki jai.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for explaining how nicely you explain about that food that we eat, how it affects our mind and consciousness. And it is so important to offer the food that we eat to the Lord. So thank you very much for enlightening all of us And I request everyone to please unmute yourself and thank Prabhuji by saying Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.